So if we're going to take a look at pelvic floor, we're going to again start in the transverse plane, and we're going to have this little marker here towards the patient's right. So left of the screen is patient's right. We get a bit of gel on there. And as always, I like to start by pressing the exam or the probe icon so I can choose exactly which exam type. Most of these will get a pretty good picture of the bladder. I'm going to choose kidney. You could easily choose abdominal penetration, for example, if you had a patient that you needed to get a bit deeper with. So probe position just above the pubic bones like this, and then angling down in this direction until we find the bladder. So the bladder is going to be this dark hypo or anechoic structure here, and the base of the bladder is going to be this hyperechoic white line down here. And we're just going to use that as an indirect measure of our pelvic floor muscle activity. So if I tilt and rock the probe, I can start at the very beginning of the bladder, and as I angle down, I come to the middle of the bladder here. We can see that's the largest portion, and then if I keep going, I find the other end of the bladder. So I'm going to just position myself somewhere in the middle here. If I want to adjust the image, same thing as before, I always start by making the depth appropriate. So I want to be able to see movement. I want to be able to see this quite large. In terms of the focus position, I want that to be down somewhere near the base of the bladder here. So I'm going to drop that a little bit from where it was down to here. And I might just increase the frequency as well, and just see if that gives me a clearer image. So the second highest frequency I think was best for us. So when we ask the patient to do a bladder contraction, we're looking to see what happens at the base of the bladder here. Usually I'm going to get the person to just do some, yeah, I see a little bladder elevation there, but let's just do some relaxed breathing first of all. With a deep breath in, we usually see the bladder drop, and with a breath out, we see the bladder come back up. Okay. And then when you're ready, just do a little little pelvic floor contraction first, and we see that elevation or that little bit of doming right here at the base of the bladder. If we want to measure that, if we want to actually measure how big that is, there is a way that we can do that in real time, and that's using M mode. So M mode is up here. So we press M mode, and what it does is it gives us the picture at the top, so this is our B mode image, and it gives us the M mode at the bottom. So that's movement over time. So each of these white lines on the screen here correlates with a white line down the bottom here. So this first bright white line that we can see, that's the top of the bladder. This dark section in here is the bladder itself, and then this white line at the bottom is the bladder base. So if we're looking for an elevation, we're going to see it down the bottom here in the bladder base. Now you can change the sweep speed. I can see it's going across quite fast. I want to make that pretty slow as possible really, so that I can see as much movement as possible there. So that's probably about right. Okay, and then I'm just going to position. You can move the line here just by using the trackball. Okay, and now I'm pretty happy with this image. So in a moment, not just yet, but whenever you're ready, could I get you to do a pelvic floor contraction for me? Now we're just keeping an eye and relax. So I'm keeping an eye on that last bit of the movement there. And what I can see is this little change in distance, this very, very small pelvic floor contraction. So I can press measure. I can come down to this line here and press enter for a distance. And then I'm going to bring the line up to as high as it went. It went 0.34 centimeters. So a very, very small contraction. You can see where the green line is compared to where the white line is. And in terms of the time, it only lasted, so we did distance, we can do time as well. So I'm going to come down here and choose time. And that's the horizontal measurement. So this was the start of the contraction. And I can see that it dropped off about here. There it is, because I've got my green line coming across, so I can see where the white line drops away from it. So I'm going to go back to the last time those 2 points met. So 3,000 milliseconds, or 3 seconds. We could probably change the unit of measurement up there. So we know that we were able to hold a contraction 0.34 centimeters and for about 3 seconds. So I'm going to press P1 That's going to save it for me, and that's going to be in the patient's file. So that's a way that we can get a really nice snapshot of exactly what's happening with the pelvic floor.